The name was blurred by water damage, but that the initials were clear. E.P. Chapter 22. Shadows of Santa Monica. The mystery of E.P. didn't stay a mystery for long. Within the week, a fleet of black SUVs appeared on the boardwalk. A group of men in sharp, tech mogul attire began measuring the distances between the shops. Leading them was a woman whose presence felt like a cold front moving in from the north. "My name is Eleanor Prynne," she announced, stepping into Tripper's table. She was Arthur Prynne's daughter, but where her father had been a man of quiet observation, Eleanor was a woman of aggressive expansion. "My father was the silent hand that kept this boardwalk from being sold to developers decades ago. But times have changed. We're building the Glass Horizon, a multi-story luxury mall. Your restaurant is in the path of the future." "You can't buy the boardwalk, Eleanor," Janet said, her voice rising in the empty restaurant. "It's a protected heritage site." "It was," Eleanor corrected, laying a set of legal documents on the bar. "But my father's original contracts had a sunset clause, one that expires on the anniversary of his death, which is next Tuesday. And then the threat was real." Eleanor Prynne wasn't just looking for a buyout. She was looking to erase the past. She viewed the Tripper legacy as a relic of a dishonest age. "Your father believed in us," Jack said. "He saw the truth behind the scaffolding." "My father was a romantic," Eleanor sneered. "I'm a realist. And the reality is, your lease is now in my hands. I'm offering you a graceful exit. If you refuse, I'll deconstruct this place until there isn't a single brick left of your truth." Chapter 23. The Secret Ingredient. The battle for the boardwalk became a Santa Monica legend. Jack, Janet, and Sophie refused to back down. They rallied the old neighborhood, Larry Dallas, Cindy, even the grandchildren of the regulars who had once frequented the Regal Beagle. But legal battles are won with documents, not memories. Jack pored over the Beaumont Journal every night, looking for the secret ingredient that could stop the demolition. "Sophie, look at this," Jack said at 3 a.m. on the eve of the deadline. He pointed to a faint sketch in the back of the book, a blueprint of the original building foundations. Beaumont and Prynne didn't just build shops. They built a sanctuary. Look at the shared wall between apartment 201 and the restaurant. Sophie looked closer. "It's not just a wall, Uncle Jack. It's an arch, a structural arch that spans the entire block. If you remove the restaurant, the entire residential building above it, the one that's actually a designated landmark, will collapse." And Arthur Prynne knew that, Janet realized, joining them. He made sure that the legacy of the people was literally woven into the stones of the building. To tear down the restaurant is to destroy a landmarked residence. Eleanor Prynne had overlooked the physical architecture in her pursuit of the financial one. Chapter 24. The Architecture of Destiny. The final confrontation took place on the boardwalk, under the eyes of the city council and a crowd of hundreds. Eleanor stood with her demolition crew, ready to give the order. "Stop!" Jack shouted, stepping forward with the journal and the blueprints. He explained the structural integrity of the arch. He showed how the architecture of a lie had actually been the architecture of a community, one where every shop supported the residents and every residence gave life to the shop. The city architect confirmed Jack's findings. The demolition order was rescinded on the spot. Eleanor Prynne's tech empire had met a force it couldn't compute, the weight of 40 years of shared history. As the crowd cheered, Jack looked at Sophie. "You saved it, Sophie. You saw the arch." "I learned from the best," she said, looking at Jack and Janet. Larry Dallas stepped forward, snapping a photo this time, a genuine one that would make the front page of the Los Angeles Times. Larry leaned in and whispered, "I guess you really can't shake the Trippers, eh, Jack?" "Not as long as we have the right foundation, Larry," Jack replied, winked. Chapter 25. The Final Knock. The sun set over Santa Monica, painting the sky in a palette of deep violets and burning oranges. The boardwalk was alive with celebration. Music flowed from the Regal Beagle, and the scent of rosemary and roasted lamb once again filled the air at Tripper's table. Jack and Janet walked up the stairs to apartment 201. They were tired, but it was the good kind of tired, the kind that comes from a day well lived and a battle well fought. They sat on their balcony, the Pacific breeze cooling the night. "One more thing," Jack said, reaching into his pocket. He pulled out a small, tarnished key. "I found this in the back of the journal. It's a key to a safe deposit box Beaumont left at the bank. I opened it this morning." "What was in it?" Janet asked. Jack pulled out a small, framed photo. It was of the three of them, Jack, Janet, and Cindy, from their very first year in the apartment. They were laughing, caught in the middle of a frantic scramble to hide a date from Mr. Roper, the landlord before Furley. On the back, Beaumont had written, "To Jack, Janet, and Cindy, the architects of the only truth that matters, each other." A soft knock came at the door. Jack and Janet looked at each other. They didn't rush. They didn't scramble. They didn't hide. Jack opened the door. Sophie was standing there, holding a bottle of champagne and 3 glasses. "Come on in, Sophie," Jack said, stepping back with a smile. "We've been waiting for you." As the sounds of the night gathered outside, the three of them sat together, the past and the future merging into a single, beautiful present. The architecture was finally complete. The lie was gone, the love remained, and in the quiet of the night, if you listened closely, you could almost hear the echo of a song from a simpler time, a song about knocking on doors, waiting for kisses, and finding that three's company, after all, was just another word for home. Chapter 26. The Whispers of a New Era. The victory over Eleanor Prynne brought a temporary peace to the boardwalk, but the modern world was a relentless tide. Sophie Tripper, now firmly established as the head chef of Tripper's Table, felt the shift more than anyone. The boardwalk was no longer just a place of nostalgia. It was becoming a hub for influencers, food bloggers, and a new kind of experience economy that prioritized the visual over the visceral. One evening, after the last diner had departed, Sophie sat at the bar, nursing a glass of chilled white wine. The restaurant was quiet, save for the rhythmic humming of the industrial refrigerators. A shadow fell over the doorway. It wasn't the aggressive silhouette of Eleanor Prynne, but a softer, more hesitant figure. "Is it too late for a confession?" the voice asked. Sophie looked up. It was Victor Dallas. He looked exhausted, his sharp suit rumpled, a stark contrast to his usual polished demeanor. "The kitchen's closed, Victor," Sophie said, but she gestured to the stool next to her. "But the bar is always open for a friend. Or a rival. Whichever one you are tonight." Victor sat down, leaning his head in his hands. "My father is sick, Sophie. Really sick. And the medical bills, they're consuming everything. The photography studio, the archive. I even had to sell the copyright to his most famous masquerade photos to a tabloid." Sophie felt a pang of genuine sympathy. For all the rivalry between their families, the connection was deep. "I have a plan," Victor whispered, his eyes meeting hers. "But it involves another lie, a big one, the kind that would make our parents proud or horrified." Chapter 27. The Silent Critic. Victor's plan was audacious. He had discovered a series of unreleased recordings from the old days audio tapes that Jack and Larry had made during their late-night sessions at the Regal Beagle. In these tapes, they joked about the Great Santa Monica Heist, a fictional plot they'd concocted to steal the boardwalk's original deed back from a corrupt city councilman who never actually existed. "If we release these as a podcast," Victor explained, "a true crime drama that blurs the lines between reality and fiction, we can raise the money for Dad's treatment, but we need a centerpiece. We need a physical object that proves the heist was real." "And let me guess," Sophie said, her eyes narrowing. "That object is in apartment 201, the Beaumont Journal," Victor said. "There's a map in there. I saw it when Uncle Jack was showing the council the blueprints. It leads to a hidden vault under the boardwalk." Sophie hesitated. Jack and Janet were away on a cruise, their first real vacation in years. The apartment was hers to guard. To use the journal for a fabricated heist story felt like a betrayal of the truth they had fought so hard to establish. But as she looked at Victor, the boy who had been her childhood playmate, the man who was now desperate to save his father, she saw the old Tripper spirit flickering. "We're not going to lie, Victor," Sophie said firmly. We're going to tell a tall tale. There's a difference. We'll call it The Legend of the Three. It'll be a tribute, not a scam. They spent the next month recording. They combined the old tapes with modern interviews. They turned the history of the boardwalk into a mythic journey. And for the hidden vault, they decided to use the old, forgotten basement of the Regal Beagle, the one that had been sealed off since the 70s. Chapter 28, A Recipe for Disaster. The podcast, The Legend of the Three, became an overnight sensation. It tapped into the world's hunger for a story that felt both magical and grounded. Fans began to flock to the boardwalk, searching for clues, trying to find the hidden vault. But with fame came a new kind of scrutiny. A rival podcaster, a cold-eyed woman named Sarah Graves, began an investigative series to debunk the legend. She claimed that Sophie and Victor were nothing more than grifters, using the memories of their parents to line their pockets. They talk about truth, Sarah Graves said in her latest episode. But their entire legacy is built on a man who pretended to be gay to get cheaper rent. Let's not forget the original sin of Apartment 201. The community began to turn. The same people who had cheered for Jack and Janet now looked at Sophie with suspicion. The architecture of the lie was being deconstructed again, but this time the weapons were social media and viral outrage. We have to open the vault, Victor said, pacing the kitchen of Tripper's table. If there's nothing in there, we're finished. The restaurant, the shop, everything Dad built will be tarnished. There is no vault, Victor, Sophie shouted. We made it up for the story. Are you sure? Victor asked, pulling a page from the Beaumont journal that Sophie hadn't seen. It was a letter from Arthur Prynne to Beaumont, dated 1979. The archive is secure, Beaumont. Below the Beagle, where the floorboards meet the tide. Only a Tripper or a Dallas will know the combination. Chapter 29, The Unveiling. The night they entered the basement of the Regal Beagle was thick with the smell of damp earth and ancient whiskey. They carried flashlights, their beams cutting through the heavy, stagnant air. Sarah Graves was there too, followed by a live-streaming camera crew. She wanted to catch the hoax in real time. Go ahead, Sophie, Sarah challenged. Show the world your empty room.